I'm Wen-Ning Chen. Welcome to my presentation. Today I'm going to introduce a research study delineating the transnational network agenda setting model of mainstream newspapers and Twitter, a machine learning approach. This study explores how social media and mainstream media influence each other in framing political events, including what topics they cover, which is substantive attributes, and how they present the emotionally, which is affective attributes. In this video, I walk you through the introduction, simple literature review, research methods, key findings, and finally some insights of the study. So since the Hong Kong government proposed the extradition bill in 2019, the city has gone through months of intense demonstrations and protests. This movement is not only an extension of the complex relationship between Hong Kong and China, but it also attracted international attention and fierce discourse. Media outlets from different countries adopted distinct narrative strategies, so transnational social media platforms such as Twitter became key battlegrounds for exerting influence. To understand the role of media in this event, the study adopts the network agenda setting model to analyze how mainstream newspapers from 4 regions and Twitter construct and disseminate networks of substantive and effective attributes related to the protest. So this part is a brief review of the theory in this article. Traditionally, agenda setting research has focused on how the media influence public perceptions of issue importance, which is the first level, and how they shape evaluation of issues in terms of emotions and attributes, which is second level. NAS model as an extension of third level agenda setting explores how the media link different attributes to build cognitive maps of an issue and how such structural associations are transferred to the public. However, existing NAS researches have mainly analyzed either substantive or affective attributes separately, with few studies integrating both into network analysis. Furthermore, the effects of the intermedia agenda setting on news media and social media remain a debate. Therefore, this article would like to know, first, how media from different countries shapes the narrative of the Hong Kong protests. Number 2, who sets the agenda and what topics are important in different media. Number 3, who influences the tone or emotional stance, for example, pro-protest, anti-protest, or neutral. And finally, who has stronger influence when topics and emotional tones are connected together in a network. As part is the method of the research. The study uses a combination of unsupervised and supervised machine learning, network analysis, and time series analysis to explore media narratives across platforms. So the article collected tweets using the Python library get_tweets. The keyword used were Hong Kong protest or HK protest, etc. The time frame was from June 9th to September 5th, 2019. After removing duplicates and non-English tweets, the article obtained a final data set tweets. Okay, and as for the newspaper, the study retrieved 2,118 newspaper articles from LexisNexis, covering major news outlets from Hong Kong, China, US, and UK. The second part of the method is unsupervised machine learning. The article applied LDA using a Gensim package in Python. Initially, the model generated 20 topics, which were then manually reviewed and merged by 3 chain coders into 13 substantive topics. So we can see these topics in the right side, for example, like the violence of the police, the UK politics, etc. Okay, and third part is the supervised machine learning for coding. The article used SVM to classify both tweets and news articles. So they use 130 manually coded newspaper articles and 1,074 manually coded tweets for the training data. And the study coded each text along 2 dimensions, which is substantive attributes, the topic of the text, and affective attributes is the stances toward the protest. There are 3 stances: pro-protest, anti-protest, or neutral/mixed. And substantive attributes were non-mutually exclusive. So multiple labels could be assigned per text, but affective attributes were mutually exclusive, only one label per text. And if a text cover covered both supportive and critical views, it was labeled as neutral mixed. And the intercaller reliability was high, with Chromebox alpha values is more than or equal to 0.82. Okay, and the article split the data 70% for training and 30% for testing. For tweets, the model performed well with F-score is more than or equal to 0.74. For newspaper articles, initial performance was lower after adding 150 mutually coded articles. All models reached satisfactory accuracy. And next, the article used iGraph package to visualize semantic networks. Nodes represent substantive attributes, and the size of nodes indicates frequency of mention. Ages show co-occurrence of attributes within the syntax. Nodes color represent affective stance, so the blue would be pro-protest and red would be anti-protest. Okay, and finally, the article conducted time series analysis to understand the temporal relationship between Twitter and newspaper content. So they use augmented sticky Fuller test to confirm all variables were stationary over time, and to avoid false correlation, article have the pre-whitening procedure, and also the article applied Granger causality tests to examine cross-platform influence, whether newspaper influenced Twitter or vice versa, with a one-day time lag, as suggested in prior research. Okay, and next is the result of the article. So first we can see the Hong Kong media. The most discussed topics were Hong Kong mainland relations, which appeared with the mixed emotion tones. You can see it's purple, and topic often appeared together with legislation and public security. In terms of tone, democracy and police violence were framed more positively toward the protest. You can see it's blue. And while Hong Kong economy, public security, and violence of protesters were discussed in the anti-protest tone. So their coverage demonstrated more pluralistic perspectives, while protester violence was reported with a critical tone. Police brutality and calls for democracy were covered with more supportive language. This diversity reflects Hong Kong's unique media landscape, shaped by its status as a special administrative region with both pro-establishment and liberal media coexisting with a capitalist system. And next, we can see the Chinese media. We can see it's basically all red. Topics tightly connected and most presented in an anti-protest tone. Okay, so we can see that Chinese media emphasize the violence of the protesters and the relationship between Hong Kong and mainland China and public safety concerns. Their tone was strongly condemnatory. Many reports imply that protesters endanger the one country, two systems principle and threaten long-term peace and stability. Okay, so in the next U.S. media network, we can see like democracy, HK mainland relations, police violence, and public security were the key topics. This reflects a more supportive position toward the protest movement in U.S. media. You can see it's basically blue, and it's also very similar in the UK media. Okay, and finally we can check the Twitter. The most mentioned issues were HK, mainland relations, democracy, and legislation. Most topics were discussed in a pro-protest tone, which is blue, just like US and UK media. Okay, and some topics like violence of protesters and HK economy were framed more neutrally. Okay, so now we can check the inter-attribute agenda setting effect. So overall, the study found that Twitter had a stronger influence on newspapers rather than the other way around. In particular, when Twitter users talk more about certain issues, newspapers in Hong Kong, China, the US, and the UK tended to cover those same topics more frequently. For substantive attributes, this influence was mostly one way from Twitter to newspapers. When it comes to affective attributes, that is whether the tone was pro-protest, anti-protest, or neutral. Twitter still influenced the media in several countries. So for example, you can see Twitter predicted anti-protest and neutral coverage in Hong Kong media. Only one case of the neutral influence was found right here. between Twitter and UK media on the pro-protest sentiment, but in most cases, Twitter led the way, especially in shaping how newspapers frame the protest emotionally. As demonstrated in Table 4, limited IS effects emerged. The only significance was Twitter's directional influence on the Chinese media in depicting violence of the police in the protest affective attributes. In other words, the more Twitter users discuss the police brutality in a pro-protest tone, the more the Chinese media cover the same topic with the same balance. So the study found that influence of both newspapers and Twitter weakened significantly when it came to a combination of substantive and effective attributes. And this may be due to two factors. First, the political sensitivity of the case likely reduce media willingness to interact deeply with public sentiment. Second, it may reflect limitations of the agenda setting theory when applied to complex, emotionally charged topics. So in conclusion, while Twitter plays an increasingly important role in shaping global media agendas, traditional media still maintain autonomy, especially regarding emotional framing. This study contributes to the growing but still developing field of NAS research and highlights the complex interplay between social media and journalism in politically sensitive contexts. For the contribution of this thesis, previous agenda setting studies have mostly focused on single media or country. This study explores cross-national interaction between different media platforms, thereby extending the application of the network agenda setting model. And the study makes two key contributions to the field of NAS. First, it introduces a novel methodological approach by integrating gradient color coding via R to analyze the interplay between topics and their emotional balance. Okay, and this overcomes the traditional limitation of analyzing topics and tone separately and allows for more nuanced understanding of emotions and issues in media coverage. Second, the study offers new empirical evidence to ongoing who leads whom debate, showing that Twitter exerts a stronger influence on traditional media at the substantive level, but less so than at the affective level. Okay, and finally is my thoughts about the future research directions. I think the study can compare with different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Weibo, which is the Chinese social media platform. And also they can separate analysis of pro-China and liberal media in Hong Kong, so it can reveal differences in their reporting characteristics. And the last part is I think maybe they can calculate the popularity score of affective attributes, so maybe it can have more nuanced findings and have the understand of the how different topics are connected and the emotion of the text. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for your listening.